Hey,
Hi.
can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, excellent. I'm
Um,
using the AirPods Pro.
you sound good. Swear I'm like sick of all my equipment. I want to smash it all with a hammer. Because technology's great when it works.
Yes, and it sucks when it doesn't work. And there's like nothing you can do.
I
Yesterday, I
know.
had this Zoom call with clients, and it was a Teams meeting, which is like the worst.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. And, we kept saying, okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? And it was like, this is complicated legal shit that I'm trying to tell you. And, it's not going to work if you don't hear half of what I say.
I don't like Teams because if you have more than like two people in the room, you can't see everybody on the screen unless my settings are just messed up.
Yeah, it's just bad. Yeah, Microsoft just needs to buy Zoom if they can, but it's already publicly traded, and so
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
yeah,
I feel like I've given up. I'm wearing my sporty spice outfit today. That's what I'm calling it.
sick. Sporty spice, I like it.
Yeah, and I'm not wearing pants. Just kidding. I'm wearing
Damn
pants.
it.
Oh God. So thank you for doing this.
Yeah, of course. I'm really looking forward to this. Yeah,
I love reformed lawyer stories. I'm
sounds
just
like the
gonna get
worst
into
story.
it. I'm not even gonna do like a real intro. I just like to keep these very conversational. But
Deal.
for whoever's eavesdropping on this conversation, I'm here with Jonathan Gabriel Sparks, reformed lawyer turned rock star, soon to be rock star. We should have had you do like, do a couple songs like Howard Stern does when he has people like you on.
We should. That would have been dope.
We could
Yeah.
do that next time. But
Okay.
so you're like a lawyer, you're kind of half lawyer now, I guess, with one foot out the door. What kind of law do you do?
Business law. Yeah, mostly. We do some trust and estates work too, primarily for business owners, but partnership agreements, trademarks, customer contracts, click-through agreements, like, you know, everything under the sun for a business, legally, employment law stuff.
How'd you get into that?
I just dug it, in law school. I was interested in it. I started going to law school thinking I was going to get into politics, and saw how those sausages were made on the Hill, and it grossed me out. And then I found that I really had a knack for business law. I was raised in an entrepreneurial, family, and understood all of the kind of throes and concerns that a business owning family would have. And I learned all of these things in law school that I later figured out were, colossal mistakes that my folks didn't know about. Um, so, I was thinking about maybe being their in-house counsel, but then, I realized that they didn't need a full-time in-house counsel, but a lot of other of my clients do need some, in-house counsel type help in an outsourced way. So, there's very few transactional attorneys out there that are good at what they do and can kind of talk turkey with other entrepreneurs like that get it. And so we're pretty good at that, and that's given us a nice niche in the
So what
industry.
are some of the colossal mistakes, like the bigger ones that you can think of?
Oh man, the easiest example is so many years ago they got a template employment contract, and it had like online, Lord knows where. And God bless them, they didn't know what they didn't know. So this contract was written with a bunch of clauses in there that they didn't understand. So they got this key executive level set of people to sign it. And over the course of the next 10 years, these people set up with their funding and help and guidance entire division that was doing conferences, and they made something like, over $1 million a year, I think, in revenue off of these conferences. But it took about 10 years for it to like turn a profit, right? So their investment was pretty bad. And right when it started to turn a profit, these guys said, either you pay me double, and they're already making like 200 or something, like really high, or we're leaving and we're going to take it with us. And, you know, you're like, well, you can't do that, but they can because the contract had what's called an arbitration, which a lot of you guys have seen. And that means that whatever the arbitrator decides, or whoever he or she likes more, is pretty much the result of that litigation. And you know, it sucked. So they took them to court. They sued for, you know, competing efforts and copyright infringement and all of these other things. They got a shitty lawyer who was from a big law firm, like a big law firm. They had you know, so they were trying to do everything right. You know, they were paying top dollar. They figured, you know, there's no way we're going to get a bad lawyer out of this. But it was a guy who specialized in real estate closings. Like, he didn't know shit about copyright law. So he represented them in this arbitration. And then the arbitration judge was used to criminal law cases in the military. That's where his experience was. So he didn't have any idea about federal law either. And he found the opposing party to be much more charming than my parents. So at the end of the day, they, you know, they sided with the more charming people who had a terrible case. And they not only sided with them, but they, you know, made my parents pay a bunch of damages plus a bunch of attorney's fees for them. So they were out. Not only were they out like an entire division that they had made, but they were also out damages and attorney's fees. So it was just so egregious. And I'm telling you, Christine, like, I could have solved that entire issue for like a $1,200 employment contract that was done right 10 years ago.
Oh, you know, I just have to tell you, I mean, I think no matter what kind of lawyer you are, we all experience some version of that. And
Yeah.
I just had a conversation with a guy yesterday about a prenup. He's getting married at the end of March, so he didn't wait till the last minute. And he just wants to protect some assets, and, you know, they're valuable. And
Right.
it was like just this one asset in particular, really, like that's all he wanted to address. So I'm like, okay, like $1,500, which is like
Right.
nothing. It's nothing, you
Yeah.
know, it's like, it's a
Yeah.
pittance. And he wanted to negotiate the fee. And I'm
It's
just
like
like,
$1 million asset. And it's like, dude, like, let me help
are
you
you
to get out of your
fucking
own
kidding
way.
me? And, you know, he caught me in a mood. Maybe on
Yeah.
another day, I would have been like, okay, fine. But honestly, like, to all the business owners out there, don't do that. Don't negotiate your fee. It is what it is. And anybody who
Yeah.
calls you and tries to negotiate your fee,
Yeah.
they just don't respect you and what you do.
Yeah.
Right? I just
Yeah. And
believe
that's fine. Yeah. Yeah. It's okay, you know, I understand that it can be very tempting to like we have this halo of safety with Google, and we think that anything online is going to be pretty good. But, you know, we are still unique. I think that artificial intelligence will get there, you know, very soon, probably. Like, it could be within the next 10 or 15 years, but it is definitely not there yet. You know, like the places that design the AI behind like LegalZoom, for example, were not designed by lawyers. They were designed by, like, you know, tech guys, you know, who want to sell a tech company and shares in a tech company. And, you know, God bless them. Like, obviously it's profitable, but we still have very unique situations. This guy that you're talking about has a unique asset that you need to protect in some way, you know, that takes your legal mind to do, or someone else's legal mind. But it can't be a software that is really programmed just to sell, you know, blank template documents.
Yeah. Well, I haven't heard from the guy.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, he probably like went to some website where you just download forms.
Right.
And he's gonna fuck it up.
Yep.
And
he's
maybe I'll
not going
hear
to know
from him.
until.
Sorry.
Yeah. He's not going to know until it's too late, right?
Yes.
He's not going to know until, you know, 5 years down the road, God forbid, he's getting a divorce, and now this $1 million asset, you know, she's got 50% of, you know, so instead of $1,500, it's 500,000, you know?
Yeah. So, you know, we're probably a lot of the people that'll be watching this or listening to it are going to be lawyers, but for those that aren't, just hire the damn lawyer, just pay the fee. Okay. Because if you called the lawyer in the first place, you recognize that you need something.
Right.
Don't change your mind after they tell you the price. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
that maybe that's a rant for another day. But
it's usually 10 to 100 times more expensive if it goes wrong. And yeah, I understand it might not go wrong, right? But, you know, in this world, you know, like for a business owner, if you don't need that contract, that's because your business was not successful. So you're planning on either not being successful or shitting yourself when you are successful because you didn't pay the money to get it done right.
yeah. Yeah. Or I feel like if you're okay with the consequences, if things don't work out, then okay. Then don't do it.
Sure. Yeah,
But
don't do it.
if it's not going to be okay with it, then obviously you need to think about that. So it's just amazing to me what people will do to just save like $200.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Or, you know, some small amount of money, right? Like, you know, you and I have both
Yeah.
had the David Nagel training, and so
Right.
for people who know him, they know what I'm talking about. But you get, you know, coaching about how not to come from a place of lack.
Right.
Like, you know, the world is abundant. There's plenty of money. You know, you can make more. You will make more. And to constantly be focused on where to save money, it just kind of programs you to have the wrong perspective on life. And then you're always focusing on what you don't have and how you need to save. And I
Yep.
see examples of this in so many places, you know, like people just clipping coupons and going, you know, looking for sales. And
my ex-wife would spend hours every weekend clipping those fucking coupons. It drove me up the wall. Like, she wouldn't go grocery shopping because of like some problem. So I would go grocery shopping, right? And she would make me this packet of coupons. It would be like 15. And she'd be like, you have to buy this brand and this size, like this many ounces of, you know, mac and cheese, or the coupon won't work. And I'm like, how much does the coupon save us? And it was like, you know, 75 cents or $1 if it was a decent one. And I'm like, honey, like I bill at $350 an hour, you know, so like 1 minute is worth, we'll save all of these fucking coupons, you know,
yeah.
like but it takes my time extra to like find the stupid product. And then I would come home with the wrong product and the coupon didn't run, and she was livid. I mean, there's other reasons why we got divorced, but
yeah, I sure hope so.
God.
That might have been like, you know, a metaphor for some of the other things.
Forest for the trees, you know, it's
yeah.
like, yeah, that's not going to save. How about we just land half of a client once a quarter, and then we'll save, you know, all the coupons you would ever need.
You know, I think, you know, when I used to think a little bit, I mean, I was never to the extreme of clipping coupons, but, you know, always looking for the sale and things like that. And you know, I think that back in those days, I was more focused on not necessarily saving money, but believing somehow that I was getting fucked. Like, I think that was my thing. And I'm wondering if other people think that too, is like somehow if you pay full price, you are getting screwed, that you should be trying to pay less.
Maybe. That's interesting. That's an interesting take. I never felt that way. I didn't feel like I was getting screwed. I felt smart if I was getting a deal. Like I remember as a child, I would love to go to garage sales because shit, man, you buy a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle at the store and it's like $5.95, but you go to a garage sale and that shit's like 25 cents, maybe 50 cents. So you've got like a 20th of the cost, you know?
Yeah. Well,
and yeah, it's not in the box, but who cares?
I always have some fantasy that I'm going to go to a garage sale or an antique shop, and I'm going to find something that's really valuable, but they don't know it. And they sell it to me for like 25 cents,
Oh yeah.
which we
That's
all
like
know
a
from
dirty
law school
fantasy.
is they're screwed. They're stuck with that. But the problem is I don't even know myself how to recognize the good stuff. So, I try to pay attention to, like, if I see something in the news, like a coin, somebody finds a special kind of coin that's worth a lot, or books, because I'm really into books, like first edition books, certain ones are worth a lot. So, that's my fantasy. I don't know why. That might just make me feel good if I find something at a garage sale.
Yeah, so you get a endorphin rush, or like dopamine, I'm sure, or like validation maybe, if you buy something that is for a price that is far less than what it's actually worth. So that's cool. I get that. And then, I think as a society, we're still sort of holding to this Depression era thinking where, and legitimately, in the 30s and early 40s, there was limited resources, like in some heavily populated areas, there probably was like a relatively limited amount of, I don't know, food or, housing or whatever. So, I think those lessons were passed down, but they're no longer relevant, and like most of our terror barrier things, that we make stupid ass decisions about are just outdated rules, that made sense at some time for some family, but not us now anymore.
Yeah, well, it's also a lot about your parents and what they grew up with, and what they kind of taught you. Like, they kind of pass on their baggage, right? There's like genetic baggage, like not actually in your genes, but just things that they learned that made sense for them, and now they pass it on to you, but it doesn't really work anymore. And you and I actually talked a little bit about that. So if you feel comfortable talking about that, you had expressed to me that when you were just like, fuck it, I'm going to pursue being a rock star. And we need to talk about that. Is like, you didn't get a lot of support from your mom. Your mom was like, what? But you're a lawyer. Why? You can't be anything better than that. Why would you leave that? And I think a lot of people probably think that.
Like, what could you do that's better than being a lawyer?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I'm being facetious, but but I think a lot of people would think like that. But you're a lawyer, like there's not too many. There's there are very few like really respected professions, and I think lawyers are one of them. Even though people simultaneously hate lawyers, but that's another conversation. But we're respected in the community, so what was that like for you? Like, what was that thought process?
It's interesting. I think that like what good podcast doesn't get into mommy issues? I think when I was first in the music industry, which was like early 2000s, I think that I needed to sort of prove to my mom that I could be a great musician and have some success with that. And then we all sort of figured out that with the mindset training or lack thereof that I had at that point in my life, in my early 20s, I was unable to, get the sort of monetary success that I wanted. So then I decided to go to law school because I had a mind for it. And then I kind of had to prove to my mom that I could, be a successful lawyer, and my dad as an entrepreneur. And I did that, and not that I'm stopping being a lawyer. That's literally my day job. It's just that I can also have a night job, and it's going very well for me. But yeah, when I started to, do online posts, with like my shirt off for like a rock star, photo, I think she got really triggered by it. And, she loves me very much and she cares a lot. And to her, no lawyer worth hiring, no respectable, decent, good moral character lawyer would also, have some shots with his six pack and his boobs hanging out. Like that's just not, it's not okay in her mind. And she was very concerned that I would I'm not sure really what she was concerned about, but I tried to repeat it back to her. And I think the gist of it was that she worried that I would lose all of my success as a lawyer because people would see me as like a fitness model or a musician, God forbid, instead of like a respectable, I'm putting it in quotes here, attorney. Mm-hmm. And that's been completely the opposite to reality, I'm happy to say. But yeah, that was her concern.
Well, that kind of implies that you can't do both. You can't be both.
Yeah, I think the market for attorneys is very sophisticated, and I think they can handle a multi-dimensional human being, and not only can they handle it, they don't want like a basic lawyer that, is gonna just say stuff that doesn't make any sense to them. And like people aren't looking for that anymore. They want someone with passion. They want someone that gives a shit.
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, and you know what? Who even cares what everybody else thinks? I mean, I think that's where a lot of this all comes from, right? It's just caring too much what everybody else thinks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, she has told me that she really struggles, playing. She's a musician herself, and she's got a great voice, and she's great at the guitar and everything, but she's really afraid to play out. And, I don't think that's it's not because she lacks the talent or the passion or the the value to society and everything. It's just I think she was yelled at by her dad, for being musically inclined.
So when did you get involved in music? Like how old were you?
Well, I played drums growing up, and I was always singing songs and stuff. I learned, I had a girlfriend when I was 16, and I asked my mom famously over a weekend to teach me to play a song that would be romantic and lovely. So I learned this song, and I learned it in 3 days, and my fingers really hurt from the calluses, but I played it for her, and it was heart melting and wonderful. So the rest was history. But yeah, then I went to music school in 2001 in Hollywood, actually, and kind of, really got good at my chops. And then I came back, and I was very entrepreneurial about it in Colorado, and I did everything I could under the sun, to make money as a musician. And I made $50,000 a year, which was good. It was good, but that was really the ceiling. I knew that there was no way that I could make really any more than 55 maybe if I was hustling,
Well, what do you mean? What do you mean? Why do you say that?
Why do I say that now, or why did I say that back then?
Yeah, I mean, I guess back then, but you still seem to believe it now, though.
I believe that back then I had limiting thinking.
Okay. So back then you thought, well, this is probably the best I'm ever going to do with this.
Yeah. And, like Mr. Ford said, whatever you believe is right is what is going to be right. If you believe you're going to be successful or not, you're right. Either way.
Yeah. Yeah. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. I love that quote. Yeah. So do you wish, I mean, I don't like to have regrets, but looking back on things, do you kind of wish sometimes that you had just been like, fuck that, I'm gonna just keep trying?
No, I don't actually. Haven't been asked that before about this particular thing, but no, I don't regret my decisions. I mean, the music world for me back then was such that you would the most you could make was about 35 an hour, doing whatever it was. So, teaching music lessons or setting up sound stages for mega churches or engineering or whatever. that was kind of the most that you could make per hour. And there's obviously only so many hours in a day before you start to like, you know, kill yourself. And it was also not very, there wasn't a lot of benefit to being intellectual and to, you know, philosophizing and like digging deep in an intellectual capacity. When I went to law school, it was all that, you know, there was no time for like the emotion or the feeling of things artistically, but there was all the time in the world for a deep dive analysis on something. And I kind of felt that that was lacking, I guess, in my world, when the only stuff I was doing was like emotional, spiritual creativity stuff. And now my perspective on the world, it's completely blown up compared to where it was. I see so much more, you know. If I go into any situation or environment, I can just spot things, you know, that I would never have noticed or picked up on. I didn't have like a radar for them, you know.
And you think you
really
got
cool.
that from law school and business, that in a way that you wouldn't have if you had just stuck with music?
Yeah. And I'm not downing musicians at all, but it's not an industry that is that focused on intellectuality or business savviness, you know. And like we've talked about, there's a lot of, you know, self-sacrifice in there, where it's like you're the starving artist and you're only legitimate if you're like eating ramen, you know. But I have dealt with my issues with that. You know, like I've hit the floor as an entrepreneur, and I know what rock bottom is, and I know how to be successful. And, you know, when I come into any of these scenarios, I'm so much more confident, Christine. Like it's just different, you know. I was very introspective and like kind of worried and timid. Like I listened to recordings of myself back then, and I was, my voice was soft, you know. And now I make affirmative statements with a period, you know, not a question mark, with a period. And because I'm confident, and stuff just doesn't shake me like it used to.
So then how did music kind of come back into your life? I mean, I guess the question before that though is, did it ever really leave, or did it just kind of take a back seat? And then how did you you know, decide that you wanted to get back into it?
Yeah, I did stop. I don't think I played guitar at all for a number of years. I don't know how many, but it was more than I'm like happy to admit to. I remember I was reading this Miles Davis autobiography. He was like one of my heroes musically, and he said there was this period where he was a shut-in. He was like a hermit, and he set down his trumpet. He didn't pick it up for 5 years. And I was reading it, and I was saying, there is no way in hell that would ever happen to me. And this happened to Miles Davis. How does that, like, it did not compute. But lo and behold, like within 2 or 3 years of reading that out of his autobiography, I did it myself, you know. So I really set it down. I think I set it down because I didn't believe that, I think I was believing the story that my mother believed, which was that no self-respecting lawyer can also be a musician, you know. And also music was, I depended on music to, like, you know, for my livelihood. And music had to give me this money, you know, or else, right? So it was kind of an unnatural like relationship with me and my art. And so when I picked it back up, I didn't need the money at all. You know, I could write whatever the hell I wanted, you know, because it doesn't have to be marketable. Like, I don't give a shit if people don't like it, you know. I'm just doing it for myself. Yeah, so I realized that music was very important to me, and I had songs to sing, I had stories to tell. And so I, you know, got tipsy a few nights in a row and wrote some new lyrics, and then I was like, found myself playing gigs with other friends, like as a side musician, and I really loved it. And I couldn't get enough of it. And the energy that God or the higher power or whatever you want to call it was giving me was intense, and there was a lot of it. It felt endless to go after music again. So I just followed the energy.
That's cool. So I'm just imagining you like, having these flashes, in the middle of your day or at night when you go to bed, like, oh, I really should pick up my guitar. What was
Yeah,
it kind of like that?
yeah. I longed for it. I was thirsty for it.
Did you
Yeah,
already have your
and
guitar? Like, had you gotten rid of everything?
most of it. I had like 10 guitars, and I sold 7 of them, I think, before law school. And the few that I didn't sell were just not worth much, so I kept them. But yeah, basically, I still had it. I had a fight with my ex-wife about I really wanted to hang up a guitar in the living room, and it's a beautiful guitar. It's this one, if you can see
That
it.
blue
It's
one?
this blue one, right?
Yeah, I see part of it. It's nice.
That's weird. It's like
You
not
could go get
showing
it.
me. Okay, I'll go get it. So this was the first guitar that I bought. I got it
I love
in
it.
high school. It's beautiful, right? Like,
It is.
nothing wrong with that. It is not an eyesore. If you see this on the wall, you're not going to think, fuck that guy. Like, clearly he's an asshole and has no
Definitely,
decorative sense, right?
definitely not.
But that's what I think she was thinking, or some derivative version of that. So I said, and I had been playing a little more. This was like, 2016. And I was like, I'd really like to hang this up. And she's like, well, why? And I was like, well, that way I'll see it and I'll think to pick it up and I'll play more, which is great. And she's like, she kind of gave me this look. And I was like, well, what do you want me to do? And she's like, well, maybe you could just put it in the basement. And I was like, it was an unfinished basement. And, we still have seasons in Georgia. It's not Colorado, but we still have seasons. And it could get cold or whatever. And I was like, that could destroy the guitar. Like, this is an instrument, And she's like, well, yeah, but can't you just put it in a case or something? And I was like, this guitar is me. Like, this is a part of me that I'm trying to put onto our wall, And I was identifying with it. I was like, you're rejecting a part of me. You're rejecting my art. And she's like, well, you're a lawyer. And I was like,
You
wow,
married your
okay.
mother.
Well, who doesn't, right? But yeah, exactly. And that was
Were you already a little on the rocks at that point?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of writing on that wall,
There was no guitar on the wall. Who won that
There was
argument?
no guitar. Yeah. I won the argument, but you win the battle and you lose the war, right? It was unfathomable, I think, to her that I would have any serious desire to like make art or play music or whatever.
It's so funny to me because I've always been so envious of people that are creative and artsy and can play an instrument or even several instruments or write songs or sing or paint, like anything artistic like that. I just think is so incredible. And it's so interesting that there's other people that don't respect that, like just don't admire it. Like it just doesn't have any value to them.
No, well, it's yeah, it is strange, I guess. It felt like it was ugly to her, I think. And I think, I don't think it's necessarily bad. I don't mean to down, my ex. Like, I wish her the best, but she has this version of like a happy home, and it looks a very particular way. And when we first met, the version of myself that I was sort of putting out into the universe fit very well because I had muted all of the creativity stuff, and that wasn't me. And I had very short hair, and my glasses were not Versace. Like they were, they were pretty basic, like, yeah, I mean, it was, I wore a button-up shirt that you could get at, Kohl's, and I was a different version of myself, and she was very comfortable with that, and she loved that man. But that was not, the avatar that I was putting out there was no longer like commensurate with my heart and soul, and I couldn't continue to fake it any longer.
That's a pretty radical change, to go from the
Yeah.
buttoned up guy who looks like an accountant or a lawyer to being the guy who's like, I'm going to wear snazzy glasses and, jewelry and grow my hair long and hang my guitar on the wall. Like, those are kind of like two different people.
They are. And I would love to credit Lee Hayward and Sarah Kaki for their workshop, because that fucking changed my life. Like everything changed when I went to their workshop.
Cool. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people went to that and speak very highly of it. And I've interviewed Sarah. I know Sarah. So I love her. I mean, I'm always coveting like what she's got on. So
I think we all
she's
are,
a sharp dresser.
And I'm a guy, and I'm still like, wow. Yeah, it was the whole workshop is kind of bringing out your own. I don't want to not do just this justice, because it was absolutely, it shook the universe for me. But the way that who we are is largely how we see ourselves and how we present ourselves to the world around us. And I used to believe that if I dressed so that the most amount of people, like the biggest bang for my buck that I could get that would like me, that would make me more successful, or something good. It would be positive than if I dressed kind of for myself. And so they reversed that. They flipped it on its head. So their philosophy, and I believe that this is mostly Lee Hayward's thinking, is that when you show up dressed in your own power, like dressed in a way that you uniquely and naturally are, you will be the most confident. And when you are the most confidently yourself, people are drawn to that largely. There are some people who will reject it and like, who cares, right? But most people will be drawn to your confidence and your uniqueness. So here's Sarah Kaki, who's this badass lawyer who shows up in Nike Jordans, right? And she totally pulls it off, and it looks great. But when I first saw that at the beginning of that workshop, there was a part of me that was like, I don't know, that's not professional. Those are sneakers. And she even told us, she was like, I got tiny ass feet, so I bought this at like the junior, like the kids store. And I was like, wow, that's not professional. It's interesting that she would, this woman whose fashion sense I aspire to, would even admit that, right? Like it's kind of like a guilty pleasure or something, but she owned it, and you couldn't help but respect and admire her own uniqueness, and literally stepping into the shoes of her own power, So when I changed how I dressed, from dressing for others to dressing for myself, we came up with like descriptive words that fit sort of my heart, and so I put those clothes on. And so when anyone looks at me, I think they have a much stronger tendency to sort of read those words. So my words were creative, mindful, and on my game. And I think that when people see me that way, they have this, that's how I get through their filter. That's how they categorize me. So they're already seeing, like, I'm telegraphing who I am. So when I start to speak or sing or be a lawyer, it makes sense, like when I tell people now that I'm, a rocker lawyer, that they're not like, what, you know, they're like, oh yeah, well, you know, I can see that, you know, like he's different, he looks different from most people.
You're being authentic.
Yeah, I think people are. I wrote this song called "Real Human Being." That's like a love story between these college students. It's the next single that comes out, and you know, they eschewed all of social media because everyone was plastered to their cell phones and they hated it, and there was no real authentic human connection. And then they found that, you know, consequently, most people were drawn to them because they were the only ones in the whole college that were being authentic. So because of their throwing social media out the door, they became really social media famous because, you know, they loved them for their authenticity. And I just feel like that's really how it works, you know. we're all thirsting for people who are real, not you know, the fake version.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you come across someone who's really authentic, you kind of are drawn to them in some way. Like they capture your attention, and you might not even realize what it is that is drawing you to them, but that's what it is. It's because there's no airs, they're not faking anything, they're not trying to be something. They just are. They're just being who they are, because you don't have to try to be who you are. You could just be that. But if you have to try, you're trying something else. Like you're being someone else.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, I think a lot of people like myself are drawn to you, Christine, because you're confidently yourself. I have a sense, and I don't have any experience like working through a stressful situation with you, but I have a sense, I have a knowing that, you know, if we had a stressful situation, you would be okay. I don't feel like I would have to like hold your hand. I feel like you would be perfectly resilient and able to get through it, you know, because you are like you stand strong in your own personality and confidence, you know, like you said at the beginning of this, you're in your what did you call it, your outfit, I forget, you know, it's like the sports,
my sporty spice outfit today,
the sporty spice outfit, right? But like, you know, hey, we could say the same thing, like you're a lawyer, you know, like what business do you have making a reference to like a shitty 90s girl band? You know, like you should be serious, right? Like,
speak
but
for
no.
yourself about the Spice Girls.
All due respect to, you know, the spices that be. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's the reverse, right? It's the fact that you are so comfortable that, you know, you show up in your sports outfit and you know, and it's like, fuck you if you don't like it, you know. And that tells me, that telegraphs to me that you are that confident in yourself and your lawyer ability and your ability to, like, you know, host a great podcast and all of these other things, right? I can rely on you. You're safe. I'm safe to be myself around you because you don't need me or anyone else to be someone different, you know?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a crazy, you know, environment. It was chaotic. And I always, something I've learned about myself as an adult is when things get really hairy, I think I'm at my most comfortable, which I don't know if that's like such a great thing, but because I'm used to it, it feels familiar.
Yeah.
And so what's familiar is comfortable. And like when the pandemic happened, I hope this doesn't come off the wrong way to people, but I was like, oh my God, like,
so entertaining.
Yeah, chaos. I can do this. You know, like I didn't lose my mind.
Yeah.
And I was just like, all right, something different. This is not boring.
Yeah. It is not boring. Yeah. I guess the challenge with that is to, like, you know, watch yourself for sabotaging moments, you know, like I too, you know, had some chaos in the household, and when I'm starting to really get not comfortable, but in a comforting environment for like elongated periods of time, I do have a tendency to get kind of antsy, and like I'm like, okay, something's gonna explode, like I don't know what it is, but something's gonna blow up, and I'll get guarded, and I don't have to be guarded, and I don't have to manifest anything blowing up either. But that's where I'm most comfortable.
I don't know if I manifest it, but I do get bored.
Yeah.
And I'll have to make my own excitement. And it doesn't have to be something negative. It could just be like, you know what? I'm going to Vegas this weekend. And I'm like on my phone booking everything. And other people will see that as, God, she's so impulsive. She doesn't think anything through. It's like, no, I'm spontaneous and decisive. There's a difference.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what I tell myself.
That's a safe, controlled, unless you, bet the farm in Vegas, that's a great way to like spend that energy and, go get your rocks off, right? Like that's safe, it's better to do that than to like sabotage a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And we know a lot of people will do the sabotage thing, but I feel like for me, I've been doing this podcast like 2 years now. I don't think it's a big secret that I really don't practice law much anymore. I still have my firm. I run that, but I'm really not doing a lot of law, and I don't want to. I don't miss it. I don't want to do it. And I started the podcast as more of a creative outlet. So for me, like if it sounds corny, that's like my art. My art is just talking to people. Yeah. And I love it. It's been great. It feels authentic to me. But that's what I had to do as an outlet, because I was bored out of my mind doing divorce. I'm like, how many times can you calculate child support? How many times can you plan a strategy to get a bigger alimony award? I got bored with it. So do you feel like that might've happened to you? Did you get bored?
It's not that I got bored, but it's that there was a huge part of like my self-expression or my life's purpose maybe that needed to be expressed, that wasn't being expressed. So, and this is really crazy, and maybe we should get into this for a second. So at the time that I made the switch, or right before I made the switch from, not doing any music to doing like a shitload of music, I believed I was telling myself this story and, supporting the story that said that I am so busy, I could never in a million years afford to do anything creative because I'm so busy, right? And this has been a story that I have suffered from for decades. Arjan told me once, I told him, I identify with being a hard worker. Like if I first meet somebody, what I need to impress upon them more than anything is that I am a hard worker, and I need them to believe that I'm a hard worker, or else if they don't know, like that's dangerous, right? So he was like, well, do you want to be a hard worker, or do you want to be successful? Because those, in your case, are going to become two very different paths. And I was like, well, I don't know. And he's like, okay, if you want to be a hard worker, like all due respect, but you should go work in a mill or, in a coal mine or an assembly line, or a construction worker. Everybody will agree, everyone, that they work hard. There is no question that they are not hard workers. But if you want to be successful, then, you're going to have to make some different choices. And some people might say, God forbid, you are not a hard worker,
Yeah.
And boy, that was so insightful of the guy. So I still had this story, even though I had, some business success, and I had delegated successfully a lot of tasks to other, employees at the firm. And, I could rely on them. They're great team members and everything. So I had reduced my workload significantly, but I still told myself the story that there was no way in hell that I could possibly take on another set of work for anything, much less like creative work. And until I made the decision. So then I said, hell or high water, I have to do this. This is my life's purpose. If I die having not tried, I will not be happy with myself. So fuck everything. I'm going to go after this with no abandon. So I did that. And what I quickly realized, which was mind-blowing, was that not only did I have the time and the energy to do it all, and I'm talking like, an extra 30 hours a week of work, like out of nowhere. But the things that I was spending my time doing was actually so that I could be okay with not doing the things I wanted to do. So my normal day used to be, work from about 8:30 to, maybe 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And then I would like exercise, and then I would like watch TV and or have some drinks for, 3 hours, right? So that's a lot of time. That's 3 hours, 7 days a week, maybe more if it's football season, right? So that adds up. But I realized that I was not doing that because I wanted to watch Netflix and drink. I was doing that because I was so pissed off that I was not playing music. So that made up for my not doing what I really wanted to do. So when I flipped it, when I switched from numbing out to actually being creative, I had endless energy. And now I don't need to numb out anymore.
Yeah, I think I'm guilty of that these days. Yeah, I've been
Really?
If you look at my Facebook, there's a lot of Netflix happening. There's a lot. I
That's
mean,
good shows.
I
good
do
shows.
I would love to watch movies, and I love stories. I like telling stories and I like listening to stories. But if I'm really being honest, I don't think all of the Netflixing, I think I might have just made up a word. I don't think all of that is just because of my passion for stories.
Okay.
That's another conversation. We're here to talk about you.
But no, it was mind-blowing to me because I thought, where would I find the time? I would never have the energy. But that was going on the thinking that I required absolutely like 2 or 3 hours a night and more on weekends to sort of numb out and like vegetate and make up for the day. But when I did the things that I really wanted to do, I no longer had to like make up for that day because it was no longer stressful. I had expressed myself completely and I was exhausted in a fulfilling way. I could sleep better because I'm not tired from alcohol and TV. I'm tired because I put it all out there, which was a very different thing.
So where does your divorce fall into this timeline?
2017 is when we separated. So yeah, and I will say, I'm engaged to my fiance Marla, and she's played a major role in my ability to sort of accept myself, with all of my random, stuff, because she's very loving and very supportive, and she likes that I'm expressing all of these,
But
things.
I mean, you picked her though. I mean, you picked your ex-wife too, but like David always says that whatever your situation is in life, it's your fault, right? Like if it's good or bad, it's totally your fault. Like we pick the people that are in our universe and who we spend time with. So I think, you're picking somebody who supports you and, makes you a better person is a reflection on who you are right now and who you're being.
Mm-hmm.
And congratulations on the engagement.
Thanks. Yeah. I did pick her. And that was a whole funny thing too. I actually went to a David Nagel thing and asked him, actually it wasn't me, but it was someone else that went up to the mic and asked about dating advice. And and he told us this. Dude, should I say it?
Yeah.
He said, okay. So he said, all right, so here's what you got to do. He said, first, I want you to write down all of the things that you hated the most and the things that you loved the most about your ex, you know, and that's going to take you like an hour. So just really do a deep dive. And then he said, now I want you to think about, you know, why you were in the situation where you hated those things, you know, because you probably loved those things about, you know, him or her originally. And so then you can grow that way, right? And then you can, he's like, I want you to get as specific as possible about your new partner and like go nuts, you know? So write down everything, every little intricate detail you can think of. And, you know, that's going to take another hour or two. Once you do that, then you got to think about, if I were this person, like this woman that I was, you know, looking to meet, what type of guy would I be looking to meet? So then I listed out, you know, that ideal guy's qualities, like for, you know, my new partner. And he said, if there's anything lacking there between where you are now and what that dude looks like, you got to fix that, because it's not gonna, she's not gonna do it for you, you know, like you got to show up ready to be seen. So there were some things lacking in there. But I literally wrote all of this down while at the Art of Success Summit, and I still have the journal entry thing. And I read it to Marla later, and it was like word for word, it was verbatim. There was one thing off, which was hair color. But other than that, every single, like I had it down to like her teeth are slightly crooked. Like,
Wow.
and it was
You manifested it.
I was like, this age, this is her background, probably a mom, like, you know, seen some shit in her life, but she's dealing with it, you know, like all of these things were there, and it was amazing. It felt magical, but it wasn't. It was like, you know, I grew eyes to see her, but I wouldn't have seen her before, I don't think.
Yeah, that's why I talk about David so much. My friends are all like, it's kind of become a joke, like, well, David says, and you're like, who's David? But it I love that story. I hear stories like that all the time about little things that people learn from him that have such a big impact on your life.
Yeah.
But when I asked you, like, where did your wife fall into it, ex-wife fall into it, kind of meant like not in the year, but like, was she, you know, did you pick up the guitar after you had separated? Or did you pick up the guitar again and then you separated?
It was like right before. It was when I think we were in marriage counseling when I was picking up the guitar more regularly. I don't know when exactly, but yeah, that was around the same time. We had like a decent relationship that was, you know, dysfunctional, but you know, we could make it work before we had a child. And then we had a child, and, you know, that was an extra out of nowhere, like, you know, 30 or 40 hours a week for each of us. And, you know, what used to be spare time, you know, like we could deal with each other's shit and sort of get through it when we did not have this baby that totally depended on us to live and breathe. But then when she came around, and you know, I'm grateful that she came around, but it really put a spotlight on our dysfunction, because we no longer had a choice. Like, we literally couldn't do what we used to do to make the relationship work. It just wasn't possible. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I hear that a lot. You know, kids just change things in such a big way.
Yeah. It's like we could afford to, you know, if you're in your 20s, man, and you know, you make a decent living, and, you know, like we could afford to like go to her parents' house for, you know, 3 days a week and just, you know, listen to them BS about stuff that I wasn't interested in. Like, we could do that, you know, that was fine. it wasn't great, but I could do it. But when I had, our daughter, and, where do I get any me time? Like I couldn't even sleep through the night. Like, so then it just put a white hot spotlight on the stuff that I could no longer afford to do. And so I started saying no, because I can't. I just, like, physically, mentally, spiritually, I can't do it. And, then we started to really have problems.
Yeah. Well, as a divorce lawyer, I always feel like, people we don't have to characterize people in a divorce as good or bad. Like there's not a
Mm-hmm.
bad guy or a good guy, and it doesn't have to be this horrible traumatic event, although I know it is for some people.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes relationships just aren't meant to be forever, and that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. And it doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
anybody's bad. And so I hope that my questions, I'm not trying to, like dig up any dirt. Like it didn't
Mm-mm.
work out.
No.
You've been really forthcoming about it. And, so I just want to clarify that, and I know we don't mean any disrespect to the marriage that happened or
Mm-mm.
to your ex-wife. Um,
No, she's a
so
wonderful mom. Like, she couldn't care more about our daughter. I mean, she's there for her. She's reliable for her. And that's, I've seen, families that have, parents, even both of them, that really don't care. And that, that would be far more damaging than the fact that we just didn't work out as a couple. I think we do very well, actually. In this way, it's kind of a, like they teach you in whatever family court it is, or something, training, whatever. There's like a divorce training that they put you through, but they say it needs to be a business relationship, and it feels that way. It's like, okay, how are we going to conduct the business of raising our daughter together? And you know, it's not perfect, but it's really not bad, and our daughter is thriving. So I can't complain that much.
well, that's great. Because there's a lot of people that aren't doing that. So I think that's an
Yeah.
accomplishment and a credit to both of you.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about your abs. So
I lost them. I had to
yeah,
get them back.
you had posted a little while ago, you had posted something on social media, like a before and after photo.
Oh yeah, sure. Uh-huh.
And I was like, wow, I wish I had it here. Like, I'll have to share it or something. And I don't remember what you looked like before, but you weren't as lean. Like, you weren't like
No,
this
no,
big grotesque person, but you
no.
were, like you probably like what most of, of us look like.
Yeah,
Um, but now you're like, you look great. Like, you got lean, you're really fit. Like, you're the kind of person you can take your shirt off and, not be embarrassed, not be
yeah.
trying to hide
Hmm.
anything.
Thanks.
So
Yeah.
when did you do that? And what inspired that?
Well, I've always wanted to have a six pack. I had a six pack in law school, um, and um, and then I lost it. I think within like a month. So I had to like achieve that goal in 2010, and then I lost it. So when COVID hit, I was like, well, I got a lot of spare time, now, because I was no longer commuting, and just that alone, was like, shit. If you do 30 minutes of cardio a day on top of like a regular workout, like, you're gonna get lean fast. So I really wanted to accomplish that, and I realized that I had just been doing it wrong. There was one very small detail that I was missing, and it had to do with the amount of calories I was eating. And once I fixed that glitch in my math, I just got lean, like literally within 2 months. I mean, it was crazy how well it worked. It felt crazy.
So what was the glitch? What did you just calculate, like your macros wrong, or was it like,
Yeah,
I got to
yeah.
stop
So
eating the ice cream at night?
no, it wasn't that. I eat ice cream, I eat Yasso bars, and I eat bacon every day. So it wasn't something like that. Okay, so I was doing P90X type programs, and they give you this schematic at the beginning of the program in the booklet. It says, hey, you need to figure out your RMR, your resting metabolic rate, which is how much calories your organs burn just for you to like stay alive, to live and breathe and sit on the couch. Then you add to your RMR your activity rate. And this is where I screwed it up. So what they said is, hey, if you're doing this program, you should add like 600 calories a day to your RMR because you're doing this program, Jonathan. And I was like, I took it as if that was my starting point RMR. So you can see where the problem is. Now I have a calorie tracker that's free and everybody should use it. It's called MyFitnessPal. It's an app, super easy. And there's tens of millions of users that have put in data for like how many calories are in typical food. So you can type in like burger and it's, 1,100 calories. You can type in, 2 ounces of deli meat and it's like, 80 calories or whatever, protein and all of that. So anyway, they allow you this deduction if you exercise. So what I would do is I would start out at the RMR plus the daily activities, which already includes my workout. And then I would add my workout in too, as if I had also burned the workout calories. So if I burned 500 calories on a given workout, and I did 500 calories for a given workout, then I'm doubling. It's as if I'm doing a double workout that day, and I never was. So whenever I tracked it that way, I was 500 calories a day too much, and I would get fat. Like I would gain fat. I'm not gonna say get fat because I wasn't.
And you're like this is
fat.
a shitty diet. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I was angry because I remember I would feel satiated and I wasn't hungry at all, but it was like telling me, by my math, I had to go eat more. And I was like, well, okay, I guess I gotta fuel my muscles or whatever. So then I would do that and I would gain weight. So then when I fixed that glitch and I only calculated the calories that I definitely burned, so I took my actual RMR, which is like 1,800 a day, and I only add in my workout calories, which is 500 or 600 on a day that I work out, then it's correct, and then it is a simple math thing, and I can dial in whatever, fat percentage I want. So yeah, that's all.
So yeah, just a minor little detail. So, but do you count macros too, or is it just calories?
I only track protein grams. So the science now is that you need to have 1 gram of protein for every pound of lean body mass that you want, not how much you have, that you want. So if I want 150 pounds of lean body mass, which is, normal for a guy my size, then I need to eat 150 grams of protein a day on average. And it can be, one day can be 125 and the next is 175, and that's fine.
That's a lot. That's a lot of protein.
It's a lot of protein. Yeah, it is. It's hard to be a vegetarian. I don't think it would be reasonably possible. I also think that the meat that I eat fuels my particular unique body better than like protein powder. I don't feel the same when I just drink protein powder. In fact, it makes me very gassy.
Oh.
It's just being real.
Yeah, poor Marla. So what do you eat? Like steak, chicken? Are you just eating chicken or rice all day?
So today for breakfast, every morning I have the same thing. So I know it sounds kind of freaky, but it's 10 egg whites, which is like 50 grams of protein, and it's only 200 calories. So you get, for me, that's a third of my entire daily protein intake, like right there. I have 3 strips of thick cut bacon that's like naturally raised ham or whatever, and that's 180 calories. So my breakfast is 380 calories and it's almost 70 grams of protein. So it's basically half. Then for lunch, I tend to have like a 20 or 30 gram of protein lunch. So, it might be like a Chipotle bowl with double protein. and for dinner I'll have something similar. And then, you know, I kick in before every workout, I have to get a bunch of carbs, like a banana is perfect, or some Cheez-Its. And then immediately after, I have to eat like 20 grams of protein. I usually just take a wad of like deli turkey, like that you would put in a sandwich, but I don't eat the sandwich. I just eat the turkey just to give my muscles that protein immediately after. And that's the whole thing, you know. And I also eat a lot of, I live on waffle sweet potato fries in the air fryer. Those things are like crack. They are so good. And man, they go great with whiskey, and it's awesome.
And do you track everything? So like if you do the sweet potato fries and you have alcohol, do you put that in too?
Oh yeah, of course. You have to. Yeah. I track all my calories. I know it sounds like a beast, but it takes me less time than it takes for me to brush my teeth every day. So it's really not a big deal. All I do is, you know, even if I'm at a restaurant, I'll check the calories, you know, like I'm not going to eat the bloomin' onion at Outback or whatever, because that shit's like 1,200 calories and I just can't afford it. So instead I'll, you know, get the seared tuna, and that's, you know, like 80 calories and a bunch of protein. So yeah, I track it, everything I eat. And, you know, it was kind of hard at first just to get in the habit of it. But once I got in the habit of it, it's just, you know, very normal now.
I've always thought that to have abs, you have to be like really lean. Like you have to be paying careful attention to everything all the time.
You don't. I am lean. My body fat percentage is between 11 and 14%. But it's not, I'm not crazy about it. Like I'm not crazy. The way that I get lean is not crazy. It's pretty normal. And actually, people are like, oh, you must work out all the time. And I tend to work out like 5 days a week. But the days that I don't work out, actually my body loses more fat because I eat less, you know. Like if I work out, I get to eat more. And if I don't, then I just eat less. But you do have to track it. I also keep a running tab. So if I, like last night, I ate 200 calories more than I like should have. So I reduced my tab by 220, you know? And so if I have a cheat meal, I have to track it, but I don't limit whatever I eat. So I might have like 2,500 calories in one meal, you know, like I'll just go ape shit. And, but then I put it on the tab, right? So then the next few days I might eat, you know, 500 calories less on that day to make up for it.
So it really is like what they say. It's just a lifestyle. It just becomes a lifestyle. It's just what you
It's
do.
totally normal to me. Yeah. I do feel I get strange and kind of irritable if I don't work out for like 2 days. I'm kind of an ass.
Duly noted.
And yeah, and Marla knows it. It's because my body has more energy available, you know, to go put into the weights. And if I don't do that, instead it comes out in twisted, weird ways, you know. That's not
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. Wow. So a lot of changes for you in the past few years. Well, I guess
Yeah.
maybe since 2017, it sounds like around
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
What if like looking back on it, do you feel like there was like what sparked it? Because it was like a domino effect, was it? It sounds like, at least from what you're telling me, it was like this, and then it kind of led to all these other changes. Do you have any insight now looking back on things? Like, was there something that sparked it?
Yeah, it feels like there were a lot of different things. You know, money mindset was a thing, like making my law firm more successful was a big change. You know, when I left the marriage, I was making practically, you know, what an associate would make off of my law firm. It might have been a little more, but you know, then I came into a very different world. Yeah, you know, one thing that really shifted it for me actually was the the cost of a family lawyer, it it changed everything because, you know, I think my lawyer was like 400 an hour or something around that time. And we used to have, I remember the family budget was like 400 a month, I think, or maybe even 200 a month per like spouse that we could spend on whatever we wanted, you know, like that's how stringent we were. So, you know, I could go like buy a guitar, for example, but I would need to save up and not buy any food out for like, you know, 6 months or something, right, to get a decent, you know, top shelf guitar. And so then I started paying my lawyer bill, which was totally necessary and very good. But that bill would be, you know, 5,000 here, 10,000 there. Like it was a lot of cash compared to what I was used to spending. And so then I remember this time I was like just getting back into the dating world, and I think we were like a year and a half removed from the marriage. And there was like, I was like, okay, I'm going to go on a date, you know, like what's my date budget, you know? And at first I was like, well, maybe, you know, well, how about $60, you know? And then I was like, well, that's really not gonna, you know, you can't get much for $60.
Maybe if you
You
go
know,
to
like
Applebee's.
yeah, Chipotle and a movie, you know, like maybe that, but that's
No,
not very
not
like
not a
sexy.
movie, like Applebee's, and that's it.
Not a movie. Not a movie. Thank God forbid get any popcorn. So then I was like, well, shit, I'm spending $5,000, you know, every other month. What if I just spent, you know, 200 or 300 bucks on this date? You know, why not? And then I did that, and it was okay. And I didn't think it was going to be okay. I thought it would like all hell would break loose because that's a whole month's worth of spending spent on one night, you know, or more than that. And it was so totally okay that I was like, well, okay, well, what if I did this like, you know, every other night? You know, what did that be like? And so my financial set point for what I could spend was just naturally upped by the fact that it was no longer unimaginable for me to spend over $1,000 on something, you know, and something of value, you know. But I was like, it was soon after that where I bought this Rolex, you know, and I would never have imagined buying a Rolex earlier because, you know, it's spendthrifty. It's like there's starving children in Africa. Like you can get a Timex watch for $15 that serves the same purpose. And if you break it, it's okay, you know, like all of these reasons. But I love my Rolex and it makes me very confident, you know, like whenever I wear it, I don't feel unconfident, you know. It definitely helps with things. And I've literally closed deals because I'm a fellow Rolex owner or whatever the hell. But you know, we have all these stories. So that was one thing, the money mindset. Meeting Marla was another thing, and her love and support has really helped me to, like I said, express more of what I have to express, you know. I think I felt like I would not be desirable, you know, as a man in the dating world if I, you know, was three-dimensional and had opinions and, you know, was an artist and also a lawyer. I felt like women would only be attracted to a guy if he was, you know, like what my mom wanted, I guess, you know, basic and just a lawyer, quote unquote.
But I feel like, and maybe, I mean, maybe you're answering my question. And if if you're answering my question, tell me, maybe it's the wrong question. Like, like the way you've told your story in the past hour and a half, I feel like you went on this, you know, quest to be a rock star. And then at some point you were like, well, I guess it's time to give that up and get a job. And that's what you did. And then you did that
Yeah.
for many years. And it's almost like the job thing was like just kind of a detour. And then you got back on track again and found yourself again. And it started with having that desire to pick up the guitar again. And then those other things followed. Like then, you know, you got divorced and you found Marla and, you know, you bought the Rolex and you did all that stuff. So like, what was it that kind of woke you up to like, I want to make music again? Like, do you feel like there was something that happened? Like, did you have a near death experience? Did you smoke pot? Like, I don't know. I'm just making shit up. But was there something? And, maybe there just wasn't. Maybe it was just time.
it it was time. There was a pressure of, my own mortality, and how I showed up every day with, literally the material wardrobe thing. I was more confident in, I started to prioritize things that I wanted rather than things that other people around me wanted or preferred. And that caused some people to like fall off, and God bless them. And it caused some people to be more attracted to me, I think. But I had the strength of the confidence. Thank you, Lee Hayward and Sarah Kaki. But I had the confidence to prioritize my own life and things that I wanted to do, rather than a shitty client, or who knows what else, like, I don't know, family members' preferences, or a bad partner or a bad business partner, anything like that. And so I just started to end things, and and it works. I think I used to think that anyone who demanded or expected things from people or the world, or had ambitions, really at the end of the day was a narcissistic asshole. And then I figured out that I can do all those things and not be a narcissistic asshole. And if anything, I'm not living life well if I don't do these things. I mean, it's cliched, but I think very frequently about, when I die, am I going to be happy with this choice? So I want to couch it in that sort of viewpoint, rather than how it feels right now. Because oftentimes the things that we think about doing, when we think about doing them right now in the present, it makes us sick, and it's scary, and it's like terrifying, and we will not do it because it's so uncomfortable. But if you think about it in, when you're on your deathbed, it's not even a question. It's like, yes, absolutely, you have to do that. You don't have a choice, and you're wasting time to even act like you do.
Yeah. Yeah. When did you start doing coaching? What was your first coaching experience? Was it David or How to Manage? Which one was first?
I had a business coach, and I still have the guy. He's great. He doesn't get into mindset stuff as much as like technical business entrepreneurship stuff. So yeah, my first major coach was How to Manage and Arjan. And that really, man, I was so into that, philosophy and mindset and spirituality and entrepreneurship and on and on. How we are holding ourselves back unknowingly was totally mind blowing. And then I, got turned on to David Nagel and a bunch of other, mindset gurus. But yeah, that was the journey.
Were you still married when you started coaching?
No, it was immediately after that I started at HTM. I think it was like within 6 months or something. It was really soon after. And that would have been completely not okay. Like my ex-wife and outage would have been, oil and like.
You're gonna spend how much?
Oh my God, it would have. Yeah, and that was another thing. The money for that too was really, like I would always tip like $1, but then I went to the Ritz-Carlton with them, and like that's almost offensive in the other way. You might as well not give them a tip. So then I moved to 20s, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that was crazy.
Yeah. I remember one time David said at an event to just give $100 to somebody.
I remember that too. Yeah.
And I tipped the doorman. He was young, like in his 20s. I tipped him when I was leaving, and I was staying at the Four Seasons in downtown New York, and I tipped him $100 bill. And I still think about that sometimes. I'm like, somewhere there's a guy going, oh my God, one time this girl tipped me $100.
In your Netflix thing, have you watched the Making Anna movie or whatever
I haven't
series?
seen that yet.
Oh, well, you got to watch it.
Inventing Anna.
Inventing Anna. Yeah, there's $100 tip scene, and it's
Oh, really?
very powerful.
But you know what? To other people, like, do you think Kim Kardashian even blinks at $100 tip? Like, to them, it's like, so what? It's like $100 is like nothing, but we are like so attached, like the normal people of the world, we're so attached. Like, oh my God, it's $100. Like, why would you tip someone that? So I get what David's talking. It's like just a matter of getting comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I used to be. I'm always like budgeting and thinking about money. I think as a business owner, that's smart to an extent. But I used to literally, I would think about things in terms of Chipotle's because that was like my favorite thing to spend money on. So that would be, $5 to $7. And if something was $35, that was like, 5 to 7 Chipotle's, right? But now I don't think in terms of Chipotle's anymore. Now I think in terms of like, a $300 date night, so how many $300 date nights does this guitar cost, and if it's more than 10 or 20, then I start to like, like that's like, I got to think about it. Right. But, back in the day, that would have been unfathomable, to buy like a $5,000 guitar. There's no way in hell, does that make sense? Like I would have had to sell stuff or something like that. So I think it's just, I have shifted up by, from $5 to $250 or $300, which is great. But, just like you, I know people too that, $1,000 is meaningless to them practically. And I'm not to that level yet, I hope to get there, but yeah, it's just a matter of perspective, and it's not good or bad. I think people, we used to make fun of people for being rich. We used to, they were like ugly to us. They were like silly. They were wasteful. They were greedy. They would screw people over. They were not to be trusted. Like we had all of this negative shit about rich people, which did a great job at preventing us from being rich ever.
Yes, because why would you want to be one of those deplorable people?
Right.
We have to stay broke.
Yeah, because, that's good, humble Americans or something, but yeah, it was, once I let go of that, the world was my oyster, right? But I had to find that speed bump and nix it.
Yeah. So how many guitars do you have now?
Wow. I haven't been counting. I'm guessing it's like 9.
Okay, because you had 10. 9. You had 10
I did.
Way back.
Yeah. The thing I'm lacking now is a cello. I had an electric cello that I would put into distortion pedals on a guitar amp. It was pretty badass. There was this band called Rasputina, I think, but they had like a bunch of cello players, and they would play like Barracuda, and it was so badass.
That is so cool. I definitely want to see you play. I wish I was going to David's Art of Success Summit in April. Are you doing that? Because it's in Atlanta.
Oh yeah, I am gonna do it. I think it's immediately before I'm playing a gig in Pennsylvania, and then I'm also playing a gig on April 6th at Smithville Bar here. We just got word.
Oh, you're going to be in Pennsylvania. I might be able to do the Pennsylvania one because I unwittingly I booked a trip to Florida the last week in April, and I didn't realize it was going to conflict with Art of Success. So it might conflict with your PA show.
April 15th is
Friday. Oh, I think I can do that. What, where?
Oh,
Where in
sweet.
PA?
At the Launch Music Festival. It's going to be kind of a showcase. Yeah, I'll figure out tickets. Just hit me up.
Yeah, that would be cool. Anyway, I just want to thank you so much for doing this and not saying no to any
Yeah,
of my questions.
my pleasure. Thanks for. I love your podcast, man. I mean,
Thank
it's
you.
there's not a lot of like, I want to say, content out there with people that are, questioning all of our own, sort of rules and helping us to level up and, rise the tide. And I think you're doing a lot of, God's work or higher beings work to
Thank you. I'm going to tell
to
my
get us up
mom you
there.
said that.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
So I love your name too. You have the coolest name, Jonathan Gabriel Sparks.
Thanks.
Such
Yeah.
a cool
I've got
name.
my own podcast. It's Success, Decisions, and Rock and Roll. It's kind of a play on words, but we get into music that people can dig, and then we'll go into like a lesson each week. So
Well,
yeah.
I will I'm going to check it out and I will put a link to your podcast and your website and whatever else you've got going on because you have a lot of stuff going on. And
Sweet. Thanks.
I encourage anybody listening to check it out.
Thanks, Christine. It's been an honor to be here, truly.
Likewise.